We've been talking about how we all need to be loved, and Bill has shared with us how we settle for conditional love instead of unconditional love. And I needed to be loved. I guess if there's one song that we could all sing without grabbing for our hymn books, it would be the song that we learned as children, or that our children taught us from Sunday school. And that's the little song, Jesus Loves Me, This I Know. But I didn't know that. I knew the song, but I didn't know that Jesus loved me. I've shared with you how my whole life was built around performance-based acceptance. And in that, one of the things that I did, I kept everybody, as Bill has said, we all draw circles around ourselves. I kept everybody on the surface of my circle. Nobody ever got inside my circle, because if they did, they would see me when I wasn't performing, when I didn't look perfect, and then I believed that they wouldn't love me, they wouldn't accept me. So I never had any close friends at all. Now then, I survived that way, and then I got married. Somebody came into my circle, and he didn't like me. And so that just confirmed what I believed. But I performed for others, I performed for Bill. Now when I become a Christian, I perform for God. I've been performing for everybody else, so now I'm going to perform for God. You mean, Annabelle, that you didn't know that God loved you? Oh yes, I knew that God loved me if my performance merited His love. And so I am performing for His love. Now then, that was my theology. I must perform for God. And as I began to read my Bible and to become familiar with my Bible, I came across verses that made me very uncomfortable. For instance, Hebrews 4:13, that says, I stand bare and wide open before the all-seeing eyes of a living God. What did that mean to me? Meant that God saw me with curlers in my hair, you know, when I wasn't performing well. Psalm 139 that says He knows my every thought before I verbalize it, oh my soul and body. Somebody that knew me that well couldn't possibly love me. Now then, we have 4 sons. We have Press, Mace, Will, and Wade. Mason David Gillham, our second son, was profoundly retarded. Mace could sing one song with great gusto. Jesus Loves Me. I loved to hear him sing it. He would sing it, and when he'd get to the chorus, he'd take that first yes and hold it out just as long as he could. He'd get out of breath and he'd start giggling and almost fall out of his chair. Please listen. I never for a moment doubted that Jesus loved that profoundly retarded little boy. It didn't matter one iota that he would never sit wherever the kids sit in church, and some Sunday night he'd get up and he'd come down and he'd take the pastor's hand and he'd say, Pastor, I want to invite Jesus into my life. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that he'd never go to summer camp, come home and say, hey, Mom, Dad, let me tell you what happened Friday night at the campfire. Didn't matter. It didn't matter that Mason couldn't quote one single memory verse, that he never went to Tuesday night visitation. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that Jesus loved Mason David Gillham. What I did not know, what I could not comprehend, was that Jesus could love Mason's mother because of the way she performed. Well, God let me walk in that theology for many years. And then one day He decided it's time for Annabelle to get her theology straightened out. And He decided to straighten it out through a profoundly retarded little boy named Mason. We had to institutionalize Mace at a very early age. But we could bring him home for visits, and I could go over to Enid, Oklahoma, for visits over there. Now then, I have done this. I've gone over and picked him up at Enid. I've done it many, 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 many times. This weekend, I drive over and I pick him up, and something's going to happen that's going to change my life. I drive over and I get him on Thursday. I bring him home, and he's been with us now Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning, and we have just finished dinner, lunch. And I'm washing up my dishes, and as soon as I finish washing my dishes, I'm going to take Mace back over to Enid. Mason is sitting in a chair. I could touch him. He's sitting in a chair right there, watching me, looking at me. Now, as I am washing my dishes, something begins to happen to me. My stomach starts going around kind of like it is now. My heart starts thumping, and thoughts began coming into my thinking processes here, thoughts like this. As soon as I finish these dishes, I'm going to have to go around the house and pick up Mason's things and pack them and take him back to Enid. I don't think I can do that. I just don't think I can do that. And so I stopped washing my dishes. I picked up my tea towel and dried my hands off, and I went over and I got down on my knees in front of Mace. And I looked at him, got direct contact with those beautiful brown eyes. And I said to him, I said, "Oh, Mason, Mason, if only you could understand how much I love you. I love you, Mason. I love you." Oh, I wanted so desperately for my little boy to know that I loved him. But he didn't comprehend. He didn't respond. He didn't see me. He didn't hear me. So I stood back up to the sink, and it was just a sense of urgency, a sense of panic almost, that I couldn't explain. But just knowing that in a little while he would be gone again, and everything I was have to go through, and I just couldn't endure it. So once again, I stopped washing my dishes. I dried my hands off, and I went over and I got down in front of Mace again. And I took those grubby little hands in mine, and I looked at him, and I said, "Oh, Mason, if only you could say to me, 'I love you, Mother.' I need that." But there was nothing. I stood back up, and as I started washing those silly dishes, God spoke to me. And once again, it's not that I heard a voice, it's that thoughts that I had never thought came into my conscious awareness. Oh, please listen. And let me share with you. I believe it was God talking to me, and this is what he said. He said, "Anabel, you don't look at your little boy and turn away from him repelled because he's sitting there with saliva drooling out of the corner of his mouth. Anabel, you don't look at Mason and just turn away utter disgust because he's sitting there with his dinner all over his shirt, or in a dirty, smelly diaper when he ought to be able to take care of himself. Anabel, you don't look at Mason and reject him because all the dreams that you had for him are never going to come true. Anabel, you don't look at Mason and reject him because he doesn't perform for you. You love him just because he's yours. And Annabelle, Mason doesn't willfully reject your love, but you willfully reject mine. I love you, Annabelle, not because you're attractive, not because you perform well. I love you, Annabelle, just because you're mine. Do you know that? Oh, do you know that? I don't know any of you intimately. I don't know you. You may not be able to go home tonight and nestle your head in your pillow and think, oh God, I'm so glad that I have a husband who loves me. You may not have a husband, and you may not have one who loves you. You may not be able to nestle your head and think, oh God, thank you for my children who love me. You may not have children who love you. They may be rebelling. But oh, do you know that you can go home and you can nestle your head in your pillow and you say, oh God, thank you for loving me. Thank you for loving me. I still can't even hear Jesus loves me without a lump coming up in my throat. Because I still visualize Mace. I still hear him sing that and giggle. It's a very poignant memory. But you know, I can't hear the song or sing it because now I know something. I can't just casually sing the words, and how I wish I could burst into song now, but that would be ludicrous. But let me remind you of what they say. Jesus loves me. This I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. We are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Me, Anabel Gillham. Jesus loves me. And my dear brothers and sisters, Jesus loves you.